A big pattern change coming in. That pattern change is warmer air. It's been moving in today, continues moving in through the weekend. Now I say warm, I don't say hot. That is because our average high this time of year is 90. We're not going to make it to 90 in Atlanta until sometime next week. So for the foreseeable future, it's warm, it's just not hot outside. We'll call things a little below average, but not too bad. It's also nice that today we begin that process of drying out over much of the region. It was a really wet 5 days. I mean, we had some weather impact team members in our Facebook group that were saying, hey, I picked up 8 inches over 5 days, or 10 inches, or even a couple of reports of 15 inches of rain in a matter of 5 days since last Friday. Well, that was a stark contrast from how much of July went when Atlanta picked up just over 1.25 inches of rain. Then in 5 days, we picked up over 3 inches. That's kind of how Mother Nature works sometimes. But moving forward, we're kind of going back to that famine category in terms of rainfall over the next few days in North Georgia. Satellite and radar now. We do have a few showers and storms that are out there. I know it is 9 o'clock, it's past sunset, but we've been watching some of these little downpours across the North Georgia mountains. There have been some lightning strikes as well, but that lightning appears to be just about disappearing. One of those downpours between Mineral Bluff and also Blue Ridge, and we can see our live camera in Blue Ridge. We're watching out for some of those lightning strikes, but it's disappeared on the radar, so probably not going to see many lightning flashes in the distance in downtown Blue Ridge. It's a bit breezy there and mostly cloudy at the moment. Rain coverage the next few days will remain very isolated, and with that, most of us not going to see much rainfall between now and the first half of the weekend. By Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the rain chances become a little more favorable, but even then, it is not a widespread rain that we're necessarily looking at. It will just be a better coverage of some scattered downpours and thunderstorms, and the rainfall rates will be a little bit heftier when it does rain at your house. And that's what this air moisture map shows. This is our precipitable water map. For those of you who might be weather geeks, it's not just looking at what's the dew point, but how much moisture is our atmosphere holding outside. And what this map shows you today is that blue color represents drier air that's moved in today. As we go through tomorrow and Friday and Saturday, we still keep that slightly drier air in place. It doesn't mean it's crisp and refreshing outside, because it's not crisp and refreshing. It just means the atmosphere itself, if you think of like a whole column or a whole 2-liter, Coke bottle or something, it's not filled with a lot of moisture ready to rain. It's still pretty dry. So we will see low rain producers and a low rain coverage for the first half of the weekend. But then we get into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and watch the yellow and the orange and kind of almost the red colors coming in, really vivid orange. That is much more moisture in our atmosphere. So we will see a better rain chance coming in here by the end of the weekend and start of next week. And those rain showers and storms that move in will bring back that heavy rainfall threat. So tropical moisture returns Sunday and really into Monday and Tuesday of next week. In the meantime, we do not have tropical moisture over North Georgia, so not a lot of us are going to end up getting rain. 20% chance of a shower tomorrow and Friday, and for Saturday, and then I'll go up to 30% Sunday and a 40% rain chance for Monday of next week. So not a lot of tropical moisture in place. Forecast track hour by hour, those few isolated showers come to an end overnight tonight, and we will start tomorrow morning dry out the door for the bus. It'll be comfortable tomorrow morning, just not as refreshingly cool as where some of our days started earlier in the week. We'll be looking at lows in the upper 60s in Atlanta, some of those outlying suburbs a few degrees cooler than that. Mostly sunny skies for parts of the day tomorrow, and then you'll start to see late in the afternoon more of those puffy cumulus clouds growing up, and as they do so, we'll introduce a few rain showers and storms into the mix. And what's going to be interesting on this forecast track, you'll see, kind of like what's happening today, is a lot of these are going to be elevation driven, where that air is going over the mountains and it's helping it to rise, right? It's forcing the air upwards, that creates more dense clouds, and those clouds get heavier, and those are the ones that tend to end up raining a little bit sooner. So we do expect that in the mountains, some of those showers and storms may pop up tomorrow afternoon, whereas in the metro, the rain chance overall pretty low. Friday, very similar, mostly dry start, couple showers and storms in the afternoon, but even then, those will mostly be across the North Georgia mountains. This entire forecast track that you saw through tonight, tomorrow into Friday, one thing that is constant is still this northeast wind. Now, that northeast wind is what brought our wedge of cool air in. And I just want to show you that, you know, we saw the sunshine breaking out today, so that wedge kind of eroded a bit. But it's still been pretty stubborn and firm up here. That the wedge is a feature that we see all along the eastern side of the Appalachians, from DC all the way down through Greensboro, Charlotte, Raleigh even can get in that wedge. And so you see present on our current temperatures that we're only in the 60s in some of those areas. We were only in the 60s this afternoon in a lot of these areas as well. So that wedge is still there, and it's eroded away here, but it's still pretty stubborn up there. And you can also see the rain showers that have been working on top of that wedge, that cool air wedge, where we've got the showers, the clouds, and it's just kind of dreary couple of days up there. But here locally, we're watching more sunshine coming in each afternoon, and that means our temperatures will be warmer. So with a low rain chance tomorrow for the bus stop in the morning, water bottles are a good idea for the kids, because it is going to warm up in the afternoon, and for those kids heading to recess and such, you want to make sure they're staying hydrated as they're outside. We're not looking at record heat, not even up to average temperatures, but you add sunshine in August with temperatures in the 80s, it feels pretty warm outside, right? It still feels pretty warm. Don't forget the sunblock as well. Sun angle this time of year, as long as we have the sunshine outside, that UV index is usually still in that extremely high range. So 60s for the bus tomorrow morning. What about the rest of your Thursday? Well, partly cloudy and a slight chance of a shower or storm. We'll spend much of the morning in the 70s, so comfortable. But once we get to lunchtime and beyond, it's going to feel warm in that sunshine. We'll be topping out in the mid-80s in the afternoon, which is still about 5 degrees below average for us this time of year. A couple spots across northeast Georgia that maybe didn't make it to the 80s today will finally do so tomorrow. Athens, you were in the upper 70s today. You'll crack 80 degrees tomorrow. 83 Peachtree City, Carrollton 84, and 83 in Marietta. We'll keep the mid-80s actually through the weekend. There's not a huge surge of warmth in our atmospheric setup. It's going to be warm. It's just not going to be a heat dome. So what that means is we'll keep things, you know, just a couple of degrees below average, but not bad. And then once we get into next week, we'll really see that heat building back over the region. So mid-80s on the way through the weekend, and the rain chances stay pretty low through the start of the weekend. For Saturday, I've got just a 20% chance of a shower or thunderstorm. So that's going to be an afternoon to early evening time frame situation where some of us get the rain, a lot of us do not. Sunday, as we see more of that moisture working over us, the rain chance does become more favorable. But even then, right now I'm capping it at 30%. You know, I've got a couple different weather models, many different weather models that I look at. Some of them are leaning more wet. Others are leaning a lot more dry. I'm kind of trying to play conservative right now with my chance of rain. It's not fun to look in the distance and call with confidence 70% chance of rain or anything like that when I just don't think that's going to play out for us. So right now, 30% chance of some showers and storms on Sunday, but not everybody will see that rain. Tropics are also heating up in addition to our temperatures. We, of course, have Tropical Storm Dexter, which formed Sunday night in the Atlantic northwest of Bermuda. That is now well north of Bermuda. It remains a fish storm. Its forward speed has been increasing, so it's now moving east-northeast at 16 miles per hour. Winds did come up a little bit today. But at this point, as it starts to move over some cooler waters in the Atlantic, it's no longer going to be a purely tropical system. You notice how it goes from the tropical storm icon to this L. It becomes kind of a post-tropical cyclone. Yes, its winds may increase, but at this point, it is a fish storm for the next 5 days or so as it's making this transatlantic journey. So eventually, I'll take this kind of all the way out across the Atlantic, and you see even by the end of the weekend it's still in the open Atlantic, but something we'll eventually watch and see, well, how does that play with Europe and impacts in Europe? We get these transatlantic systems, and very oftentimes they can impact parts of Europe. Tropical system off the coast of Georgia as well that we're watching. This little cluster of thunderstorms. Models the last several days have been trying to see, will this thing spin up and generate a tropical depression, or will it just kind of stay an area of thunderstorms? At this point, the National Hurricane Center giving it a 30% chance of development over the next 7 days. The trajectory of this, though, is not going to move like westward into Georgia. Remember, we have that wedge, that northeast wind. Well, that northeast wind is promoting this kind of counterclockwise circulation out here, but the steering currents are going to take this northeastward, generally where Dexter went as well. And so that has a 30% chance of development over the next 5 days. We're also watching Invest 96L, which is out in the open Atlantic in what we call the main development region. So this was a tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa a couple of days ago. As it makes that transatlantic journey through the tropics, the main development region, the intertropical convection zone is another word for it, a fancy word for it, Intertropical ITCZ, if I can get the acronym correct. As these things make their way westward, they get steered by larger features in the atmosphere. So it's often this big Atlantic high, Bermuda high, you might know it as, that kind of steers these things around. And when that high is stronger, it steers them a little bit lower. When the high is weaker or progresses up to the north, they get steered up here and remain fish storms. So as of right now, you can see the direction over the next 7 days, the kind of circle on the map, that is to the north and west rather than due west. So 60% chance of development the next 7 days into a tropical depression, potentially maybe even a tropical storm. I'll show you spaghetti models on this one. There is some widening in where those are showing by the early part of next week. The next couple of days, it's pretty clear this thing's headed due west-northwest, and then north of the Leeward Islands and everything, and looks like north of the Bahamas. But does it take a track here? Does it take a track here and play ball in this region? Is that something we're watching closely, or is it something that we just have no concern about as we head into next week? So that is something we're watching closely. It has been a remarkably dull start to hurricane season in the Atlantic. The Pacific has been throwing storm after storm after storm out, and in the Atlantic we have yet to see anything. I'm not going to say it's not exciting, but we've seen a lot of these fish storms that have been really low grade tropical, storms that haven't really done much. But we're getting into that time of year in August where we do pay attention for potential tropical development and where these storms can end up going, because we get into the month of August and we're getting to that kind of peak, so to speak, of hurricane season. I do want to pull up for you our tropical timeline, and I'll also pull up for you this tropical names graphic. So we've now had Dexter. It's a tropical storm. We've yet to see a single hurricane this year. We had Chantal, Barry, and Andrea. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, they have seen a whole lion's share of named storms. But here's our tropical timeline for the year. So really tropical activity, when you're looking at these, what does the red and the yellow mean? Well, the yellow is a look at hurricanes, so the number of hurricanes we've seen over 100 years. The red is all tropical cyclones, meaning tropical storms and hurricanes. And the higher that this graph goes, the more we've seen by calendar date. So the peak of hurricane season is September 10th, but notice as we get past August 1st, there's this pretty distinct upward trend, especially in the back half of August, heading to the 1st of September. We really start to see, historically speaking, the season really ramping up. So we do expect that August will finish a lot more active than where it started. It's just a matter of, where are these storms actually going to go as they develop. We know that the Saharan air layer, where we have Saharan dust, tends to quiet down a little bit as we get past July. And less dry air, more moisture means we have more of these tropical waves coming off and having the potential to actually develop. So those are things that we are watching in our future for the next couple of weeks, but in the meantime, nothing immediate that we are watching. So in the meantime, closer to home, mid-80s in our forecast through the weekend. Low rain chances, just a 20% chance of a shower or thunderstorm tomorrow, Friday, Saturday. Sunday goes up to 30%, and really I think it's that Monday, Tuesday time frame we have the most tropical moisture over North Georgia, so scattered downpours and thunderstorms will be a big feature of our forecast to start next week.